Okay, so in continuation, I find the 6 healthy personality traits, right? Okay, so the 5 qualities of mentally healthy people is that they usually feel good about themselves. They don't have they don't become overwhelmed by their emotions, such as fear, anger, love, jealousy, guilt, and anxiety. Fear, anger, love, jealousy, guilt, or anxiety. So the thing is with that is you might have some people who generally have healthy personalities, but it's a little bit like this. It's a little bit depending on the situation, they are very emotional or they're less emotional. But if work is going well and they feel like they are moving forward in their lives, and if they're single and they're enjoying it, or if they're in a relationship and they're enjoying it, or they have children and they're enjoying that season, then so everything is sort of stable in their lives, then on average this is what it would look like. But if there's a bit of strain in some situations, you might feel like the emotions will shift a bit, or that they'll feel doubtful about certain situations. But that is external things that affect how they, that depends on how they respond to it. Unhealthy people will respond in a different way to these circumstances, because a lot of the time healthy personality comes from within you, and unhealthy personality comes from within you. And then the things that life throws at you and the circumstances that you're going through that affect you, or events that affect you, the healthy personality will respond in a healthy way, or recognize that they are being too emotional, they need a coping strategy, and they'll usually use a healthy coping strategy. Okay, and unhealthy people will do the opposite. Okay, so what you're looking at is, even in general, when life is stable, an unhealthy person will still have a negative look on things, will still feel jealousy where it's unnecessary. So jealousy, I'm going to say jealousy as an example, or anger as an example, where you get upset because your friend is hanging out with other people. That is unhealthy. So it depends. If you can recognize it's jealousy and realize they're allowed to have other friends, then you can shift your focus. That is healthy. But if it becomes something where you're like, why are you hanging out with these people? They're not your friends, and you're coming up with all these reasons, but you don't actually know this person, and you need to be around them all the time, it becomes an unhealthy thing. A lot of the time, an unhealthy person can recognize that they're jealous, but they can't necessarily stop the way that they think, and then it affects their behavior, and then they end up being mean or rude to the person and their other friends. Guilt can also be something where it's unnecessarily carried, but that would usually stem from the disturbance that happens in early development. Okay, and so a lot of the time the person might even feel confused why they feel guilty. If you've done something wrong, you would feel guilty, but a healthy person would say, okay, I cheated on a test, that was not good, I feel guilty and I feel shameful. Now for the next test I'm going to not do that. And you can and then you can let it go, and you can almost make yourself a better person where you're choosing not to do certain things. So an unhealthy person would just carry that guilt, would just and it's not at all saying when we're saying unhealthy personality, it's not this person is a bad person and they don't deserve this and this and this. What it is it's just a traumatic situation that has happened to them that almost they carry in their subconscious, and certain events bring it out in them, alright? And what it is that you can actually choose to control it, sometimes with medication, sometimes with talk therapy, okay? Sometimes we're just choosing not to think this way, and therefore the way that you think is how you would feel and then how you behave. But some people choose to self-destruct, and it becomes a habit, and then it's difficult to stop that habit, okay? A lot of the time, the original starting place of guilt, of shame, of feelings that you feel confused about, those things come from early development. and that you would need to go back to the developmental stage, figure out what it is by going to a therapist, figure out what it is that started it initially, and then change that thought from the process of I feel guilty over this to I don't need to feel guilty over this, and teach yourself to think in a more healthy way. So it takes me back to the inner voice that we have from our primary caregiver. If it's a little bit like no, or critic, and the person doesn't mean it in a negative way, they don't mean to be that way, but it's just how they raise their kids, then you can change that inner voice to positivity, to encouragement, to the glass is half full rather than the glass is half empty, so to speak. But you have to choose that, and you have to then work on that inner voice. So you do get all these emotions from mild, middle to severe. And everybody has generally mild, depending on the circumstance, depending on what they've done. Everybody has fear, everybody has anger. What they're saying is a healthy person won't be overwhelmed by it. Now, I know for myself, I am not always emotionally stable. Okay? That is one of the things that I struggle with. The rest of the things the rest of the healthy personality traits I'm actually quite spot on with, but it's because I've worked on myself in my 20s where I've become more secure. So sort of I did in my 20s have struggles with the first 3 developmental stages. And the first one of trust versus mistrust wasn't really an issue. I don't necessarily have trust issues, but where it becomes this thing where I'm comparing myself to other people academically, or where it's taking initiative and then thinking, is this actually my place to take initiative and fix? I have to correct the way that I think with this. So for me personally, if I'm looking at how I think and how I behave and how I respond to situations, I have disturbance with the second and the third stage, but it's not severe disturbance. So it's something where I can recognize it in myself, read up about it, and then manage it. So I would say with my emotional stability, instead of bottling it up and pretending that I don't feel hectic or passionate or angry about something, or become overly excited around people, I've learned to channel that in Dear Diary, in talking to friends, in a lot of the time just actually sitting at the church talking to God and just telling Him what I think. Breathing in a situation where you want to lose your temper, or where you feel really hurt but you don't want to hurt the other person. So you breathe through it, and then you contain it, and then you handle it. You let it go in Dear Diary or to God. That is what I've had to do with my emotional instability when I become overwhelmed with my emotions. Not at all saying that every day I get it right, but I'm aware of it and I try to channel it into the right place. The other qualities of a mentally healthy person is that they're comfortable around people. People meaning men and women. Okay? And they can laugh at themselves and they can laugh with others. So there is a difference between being bullied and laughing at yourself, and laughing just generally because it's light-hearted and you're laughing at a mistake. There is a difference. Don't take bullying. Don't let people treat you like dirt. Okay? There is a difference between that, but you will feel it in your spirit. Even if it's a psychological thing where there's manipulation, you will feel it. Healthy people are compassionate and they have strong sense of community. Okay, so compassionate meaning they care for other people and they care for themselves. Another thing that I want to focus on or emphasize is you need to look after yourself in order to help others. A good example of this is in an airplane when something goes wrong. You can't put the masks on other people because eventually you won't be able to help people. You need to put the mask on yourself first. It's not selfish to look after yourself first. If you're only looking after you, then that is selfish and you don't care about other people. Okay, as long as I've got my mask on, everybody else can on. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is if you put your mask on first, also then you figure out how to put the mask on so you can teach other people how to put their masks on so that they can help other people. Okay, so it does start with you looking after you. Another example